Here's one towards the goal. That's going to be gloved by Travis Ridgen. Well, this is more like it.
This is Slangin The Bizkit. Here's Travis Ridgen and Dave Wheeler.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back inside our luxurious, beautiful studios outside the Winnipeg Airport at the home at Polo Park, 1440 Jack Blick Avenue. My name is Travis Ridgen. I'm a former professional hockey goaltender. The man across from me is the king of Canadian morning radio for the last 20 years, specifically here in the 204 in Winnipeg. And most importantly, he is the Rolex wearer, diamond ring wearer, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, jet flying, limousine riding, son of a gun. And he's having a hard time holding these out to get done. Now, can I get 2 claps and a Ric Flair?
For the record, never owned alligator skin shoes. I've never owned a Rolex, and I've never wore a diamond ring.
You're the king of radio, though.
I'll take that. Yeah.
You're the wheeling dealing.
I'll take that one.
Can I ask a follow-up, though? So I know we usually, like when we do an episode from last week, we burn that. We never look at the game film after. But I was listening back to this morning, doing some adjustments for some clips. The Bobby Hull story that you mentioned, Bobby Hull trying to pick up your wife.
Well, look, I trying to pick up my wife, I think is a little maybe the wrong description of that.
He's trying to go wheeling dealing.
Look, Bobby is a very charming man. He's always been a very charming guy. He saw a very beautiful woman, and habit kicked in, and he and I had a chuckle about it. But my wife was very charmed. How about that? This old man who had a bunch of Stanley Cup rings on, and he was, whoa, hello there, beautiful. I mean, it's just the charm kicked in.
It's got to feel good, though, when a man of that status and that caliber is trying to, charm your wife. That's got to feel good, though, for you. Like, you have a high caliber woman with you.
Well, look, my wife and I have an amazing relationship. Whenever we go to parties, she goes one way, I go the other way, and we're mingling. And we'll come back every once in a while and check up on each other, like we're always kind of keeping an eye out for each other. But there's never a moment that I worry about my wife. There's never a moment she worries about me in that respect. So for me, it was more so knowing Bobby as well as I had for the past couple of years. I was like, hey, Bobby, easy. And he just turns, looks at me, and goes, Wheels, I'm harmless.
The reason I bring it up, how much damage do you think Bobby Hull did back in the day?
Well, look, he...
good-looking guy, too, back in the day. Him and Brett.
Those hockey players, man, I'm telling you, this was before the day and age of social media, before the day and age where you had 50 microphones shoved in front of your face. Maybe there was 1 or 2. And I think there's a reason why when you look back at old photos of all these players, they're always smiling, man. I mean, I'll quote a couple of guys who I know who had a good career in the National Hockey League, and they since retirement, they'd always say, the game was really good to me, boys. The game was really good to me.
You see that PWHL fight the other day, too, by the way? I know a little bit of ADHD here to start the show.
Yeah, that's okay. As a matter of fact, I did. They've had a couple now in their history.
A couple? I thought that was the first PWHL fight.
I think there was one last year too, if I remember correctly, in their inaugural season. I think they were pretty much on par with each other. I mean, it was, and I'm not saying this. This is no disrespect, but it was a helmets and gloves situation. And to me, is that a fight? Sure. Yeah, they were swinging. They were going at each other. It looked like they both had a couple of nitro cold brews from Sheepdog Brew Co. before the game. They're all fired up on the on the caffeine. And hey, they dealt with it. They got into the box. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's good for the game, in my opinion.
And believe me when I say, if there's anybody out there who's a feminist, it is myself. I take pride in that. I am a hardcore, true and true, bleeding heart feminist. I love nothing more than seeing the 2 gals go at it. Although, obviously, I would have liked to see the helmets come off, but I would have liked to see a little bit of hair pulling, too. That would have been nice.
Okay. Look, I will tell you this. I think what it did do, it adds some legitimacy to the game, because there's a lot of people like, no, it's girls hockey. How intense can it be? Yeah, it got intense. You get a cross-check to the shoulders a few times. You're going to turn around and have a word, rip the stick right out of her hand, popped her in the kisser, and they had a few back and forth. I mean, look, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a natural thing. Yeah, I remember specifically in practice, there was, before the Zamboni came out, we were done with everything. Guys just kind of go, and more than anything, they just practice grappling. I mean, they weren't striking each other, but positioning. Mm-hmm. I don't think a lot of that goes on in the PWHL. I don't think they're practicing. They showed in the box after, they were kind of like, here's what you should have done. Here's what I tried to do, or whatever it may be. I don't think anyone's in the league is hoping for more of that.
I am.
I don't think anyone is actively going in the locker room going, hey, girls, make sure there's more of that fighting. But subconsciously, I think they're going, it's not a terrible thing for the game. It adds legitimacy to it, and it brings it closer to traditional male hockey.
You remember, what was his name? Steve McIntyre, Oilers tough guy?
Yeah.
He is, I remember out of retirement.
Was it Steve McIntyre?
Steve McIntyre,
Okay.
big 6'6", yeah, Big Mac. He started his own hockey fighting school right out of retirement. So maybe those two gals can sign up. Steve, you got some more business coming soon.
Look, man, like I said, I don't. You say you would have liked to see them drop the lids. I've seen that happen from everywhere. I mean, even now, a lot of junior hockey leagues in Canada are, they're full bubble now. They have to, right? Mm-hmm. And the odd time, it's like, okay, you square off and you pop that off and you drop the mitts and you square off because someone's got a cage on. You're not dropping your gloves, obviously. But I remember a few times there was a guy who would, get the cage up this far, drop one glove, and start coming underneath. So,
but do you remember? It must have been like 10 years ago, because in minor pro hockey you can take your own helmet off, but in the NHL about 10 years ago they made a rule: no helmets off.
Right.
You couldn't take your own helmet off. So
right.
I think it might have been George LaRock, or maybe even Steve V. Mac, where they said, "You take my helmet off, I'd take off yours." Truce, sure, and they took each other's helmets off. So
yeah, I think I remember Ginla doing that once
Was
too.
It Iggy?
Yeah, I think so.
We're dating ourselves with that. That was a while ago.
Yeah,
'cause I think it was when George LaRock? Or is it George Peros, when he smacked his head in the ice and they said no more helmets off during your fights.
Well, here's the other thing too, though. I mean, yeah, sure, you can do it that way, but I remember wearing the half bubble. If you wanted to go with the guy, you were more worried about your hands. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that's why you'd say, hey, like you kind of motion towards your helmet, you like drop the lid, and you're like, yeah, I don't want to mess these up. You break a couple of fingers. I mean, you can't grip a stick. That's just as bad.
Well, I mean, they got the visors on now, but man, it's going to do some damage though when you're just getting the visor on there.
I have seen visors do a lot of damage, not only in fighting the guys' knuckles. I've seen them split guys open if they come across and they hit the visor and it splits them in the face. I've seen, just in regular play, I've seen sticks go up where normally it would have just passed right by and been a close call. Instead, it gets caught up in that visor and bounces back and forth. I know they protect. I know why they're there. I understand why they're there. They're not a perfect solution. I've said it before on this podcast. I think we're about 15, maybe 20 years away from seeing full bubbles in the NHL.
And you think no fighting by that point in time? I mean, I guess it's kind of hard. You got to take the full bucket off, and they're not going to let that happen.
I'm telling you, man. Look, the NFL once upon a time didn't have helmets.
Really?
Well, I mean, they had helmets, but they didn't have full face masks and whatnot, and they're just getting more and more and more bubbled up. And the NFL is a very popular league. The NHL can use that as like, look, they're just as popular there.
It's a sad day the fighting goes in hockey. I don't think it'll, I mean...
If you take fighting out of hockey, you see more stick majors. I guarantee you.
Yeah, because it keeps guys accountable. You're going to be a little bit more careful with your stick.
100%.
Well, you ever see that clip of Mark Messier? I think they were playing, must have been the Jets, maybe even the Coyotes back in like 20 years ago. And Messier's going, watch your stick, or I'll put it right in your face. Mm-hmm. And the fighting keeps guys accountable. But you only have, Laurier, Rempe, Reeves, Olivier. Ooh, I'm forgetting somebody. Who's that other heavyweight I'm forgetting? Jack-Eye in Montreal, but that's about it. They're a dying breed.
You ask, and this has been well documented in a lot of novels, you ask a lot of star players, they feel better when they know they've got a bruiser in the lineup, right? Because they know that the guys aren't going to be taking cheap shots at them because they're going to have to answer the bell.
And look at the greatest game of the year, Canada-USA. 3 fights, 9 seconds in. Hockey's back. Physicality's back. Mm-hmm. No soccer on ice. It's good.
Although, what we got to do is get rid of the situation with Jack Hughes going into the end boards with Jersey, done for the year.
What do you think of that?
I think it was very unfortunate. It actually reminds me a lot of when McDavid, I think it was his second year, when he went into the end boards in a very similar situation. You got 2 guys firing down, trying to fight for a lane, and skates get caught up, and you're that close to the boards. Ooh, I'm actually surprised that... Remember when they changed the icing rule where there's no more race all the way down? That's what they're essentially trying to get rid of, right? In a situation like that, you can't get rid of that. You can't. Jack Hughes was looking for a angle. He was looking for a position to be at for a rebound or whatever it may be. Jack Eichel made the right defensive play coming all the way back, trying to fill that lane. Skates got caught up.
He's hunting pucks.
Now Jersey, bye-bye Stanley Cup contention.
Yeah, you think they're done? You think they make the playoffs now or no?
I think they're going to be hard-pressed.
They have a lot more stress on Markstrom than he's got to carry the mail. He's been playing pretty good.
That Atlantic division's really strong, man. I think they're going to have a hard time. Like I don't even know, truthfully, as my ignorance, I don't even know if they have anyone that they can call. I think they're going to have to make a deal at the deadline. They're going to have to try and fill that gap. And how do you do that?
That's tough. That's a tough division too. You got Toronto in first, Tampa, Florida. I mean, if you're Toronto, you're just hoping you're not playing Florida again. You're hoping for Tampa, but then you got to meet Florida in the second round. It's a tough division to get out of, like you mentioned.
Jersey just got a whole list of problems dumped on their desk right before the trade deadline.
Time to start tanking. You got 2 months. Time to tank.
Whew, man, I'm sure that's crossed their mind.
Speaking of putting your head into the headboard, remember the Taylor Swift story we told last week?
About him having security outside of his door. We couldn't figure out if it was to keep people out or keep him in.
A lot of people on the internet, they were saying, that's gross. That's disgusting. It's one of the top players in the world. He's got status. He's got cash. He's good looking. He's got a little bit of Riz, Bobby Hall-esque. But let me ask you a question. Is a good lock one that can be opened by any key?
What?
Is a good key a key that can open any lock?
I don't understand the metaphor.
If a key can open any lock, is that a good key?
It's a skeleton key.
If a lock can be opened by every key, is it a good lock?
Of course not.
I rest my case.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm with you on that one. I don't understand the metaphor, but I'm sure somebody did.
You imagine if Auston Matthews, though, if he had gotten drafted by the Jets, because I know it was Matthews and Laine 1-2. Mm-hmm. You got Patty Laine, who's sitting there playing Fortnite all night, and Auston Matthews, who's doing really well for himself. You imagine the damage that he would have done in the city of Winnipeg if he got drafted number 2?
Well, look, Laine is not. It's not like he's a bum. I mean, he's been a bit of a suitcase, but I think he's found a really good home in Montreal. He's deadly on the hash, man. On his off wing, You
see Marty St. Louis yelling at him the other day in practice? He's like, "Wake up! Wake up!"
Look,
yelling at him.
Laine is not going to be the hardest skater out there. I mean, he's got big strides. He takes up a lot of real estate with a couple of strides, but he knows where he's comfortable. He knows where he can shoot from. He knows what his job is. Outside of that, I don't think you're going to get much more out of him. And I think if you press him on trying to do more than what he's comfortable with, you're not going to get the most out of him. Does that make sense?
A little bit.
Okay.
I'm more focused on like what Matthews could have done with the city of Winnipeg, the talent pool, if he'd been here for the last 5 years. Man, imagine 300 Maine. Earl's a 300 Maine.
I don't think he's having any problems in Toronto. How about that?
Well, here's a real question. If you're Auston Matthews and you're probably one of the more famous people in Toronto, you probably got to have like 1,000 chicks in your DMs every single day. What do you do with that? You can't entertain that because you don't know who's serious and who's going to try to bury you.
I think it's why he grew the mustache and wears a turtleneck.
He's probably got to be on some like celebrity dating app where it's just like he's getting access to other celebrities and there's like a little bit of skin in the game where you're not going to bury him right away.
I think he cares more about if he's going to make it out of the first round in this year's playoffs.
That's true. Well, here's a stat for you. The Leafs actually have not won the division since 99-2000, and they've won the division 3 times since the NHL was formed in the 30s or 20s, whatever it was. And then they're going to play Tampa, possibly in the first round, which could be good for them, but if they play Florida, they're buried. Got the starting goalie Stoller's back. Got to make some deals, like you mentioned, maybe trading Woll for some defensemen or locking it up a little bit more. But I have a question for you, and this is a question for the voicemail for everybody listening. What is more realistic this season? The Leafs making it out of the second round, the Leafs winning the Cup, Kim K, talking about her yams or personality, whatever you want to pick that's real, or the scamdemic of 2020? What's most realistic?
What's most realistic? Leafs making it out of the first round.
You think they make it out of the first round?
I think they have a shot to make it out of the first round, and if they make it out of the first round, you'll watch the Toronto Sports Network and all the other ones out of there go, that's it, start planning the parade. They make it out of the first round. They feel like that's the big jinx, right? Mm-hmm. As long as they don't have to play Boston in the second round, then I think they're already marching towards putting their names on the cup.
Not going to make the playoffs. They've been terrible, and Swayman does not live up to the contract. But yeah, it's a 3-horse race. You got the 2 Florida teams and then Toronto. And if you get the Panthers in the first round, that's a thick, meaty, testosterone, truculent-driven team. Brian Burke-esque.
Yeah, and I mean, as long as Bob's got another season in him to get ridden like a horse through the playoffs.
Like Tyler Seguin putting your head into the headboards at the Winnipeg Fairmont.
Well, the old headboard analogy comes from Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain.
Will Chamberlain, a basketball player, right?
Yes, Wilt Chamberlain, the only player in NBA history to score over 100 points by himself in a single game, and Adam Sandler does a great impression of every other guy on that team in a timeout going, hey, man, I'm open. I flew my family in, man. Just one basket. That's all I'm asking for. But 100 points in a single game, Wilt Chamberlain, and they said he did as much damage on his headboard than he did with the backboard.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he was the ladies' man, as Tim Meadows would say.
He lisped too?
No, I was doing a reference to Tim Meadows, who did a movie called Ladies Man.
Oh, well, I was going to say, like, picture like Mick Jagger. That's one of the ugliest guys you can get going. That dude had no problem getting ladies.
He's a rock star, man. He's a Rolling Stone, and he rolled both of them.
Last thing I had here before the commercial break, Patty Kane takes up the all-time shootout goals leader with a nasty tuck against the Kraken. Nobody has scored more shootout goals than Patty Kane.
Well, listen, those other goaltenders have to learn how to shake it off because he has touched greatness. He has been in the presence. He has spoken words. He has traded essence and air with Taylor Swift. So I think that gives him that extra superhero vibe when it comes to that. But look, the guy's been dirty dangling for his entire career. Like his entire career. That's his thing. That is his thing. Kind of similar to the Patrick Laine. He knows what his skill set is. And coaches just go do your thing, Patrick. I mean, they don't ask anything more of them because they know he's going to have dirty dangles. But if they ask him to back check, probably not.
Well, you were telling me the other day about Showtime dicing up Taylor Swift back in the early Hawks days, right?
Yeah, so it was actually Denny Savard telling the story about how the rule was with the Chicago Blackhawks. All the boys are on the bus. Once all the boys are on the bus, they call old Spinorama himself, and they go, "Okay, coach, team's ready, let's go." And so he happens to be walking to the bus, and he looks over, and there's Patty Kane chatting up a couple of young girls, and had a few choice words for him that had a few selective English language words. Marched them on the bus, and apparently the next day, Patty Kane walks into the office and goes, "Hey, coach, you know, one of those girls was Taylor Swift."
Never heard of her.
Yeah, probably not. Not until years later. Yeah, listen, down the road, she's going to do really, really well and do this thing called the Eras Tour. No, I don't think Denny knew at that point, but yeah, still a cool little brush with fame.
Yeah, sure, Patrick. Morning skates in 10. Make sure you're ready.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll bag all of you.
Yeah. Taylor Swift, huh? Swiftly get on the bus. How about that?
Man, that's a chick who's got a little bit of mileage behind the belt, the odometer. You got John Mayer, the Jonas Brothers, all three of them. Travis Kelce, Patrick Kane, Taylor, the dude from Twilight. She's got a...
Look, man, whatever your muse is to make good music, good for you. Look, if she ever does, and I pray they don't. I honestly, truthfully, from somebody who found their life mate, I truly hope that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce have found each other and it lasts forever. I truly do. But if it doesn't,
you know what would help them?
Oh, that's going to be a good record.
You want to know what would help them make it last a little bit longer?
Sheath Underwear,
the presenting sponsor for the show since day one. You'll last longer because you'll be fresher, and we'll tell you why. The team at Sheath has engineered the dual pouch technology. It is a separated, segregated compartment for your bacon and your bocconcini. Nobody's touching. They got their own separate, segregated parties, and they have this bamboo mesh, new and improved, cooler, more comfortable. It breathes better than ever before. It is the best underwear money has ever bought. And if for some reason you're still using your dad's gitch with the holes, it doesn't stretch back anymore, guess what? We'll make it even easier for you to dump those in the bin where they belong and get yourself a pair of Sheath. The code BIZKIT69, BIZKIT 69, will get you 20% off the greatest underwear money has ever bought. And they also got socks now. They got crew socks. They just launched. They have so much good stuff over there at Sheath Underwear. Click the link in the description.
Separate compartments for each of my toes?
No. Just a crew sock. Just a 6 style, like a nice, clean white sock.
Nice.
But pick up a pair of Sheath Underwear. There's a link in the description. You click on that. Same thing for the Apple Spotify notes. Click that. Use the code BIZKIT69, 20% off. And thanks to Sheath for making the show possible and being with us literally day one.
As always.
You guys are awesome.
That's where we put our Rolling Stones.
Where we roll the stones. Speaking of Rolling Stones, Spencer Knight, did you follow that story? His whole story the last couple of years is actually really, really beautiful.
Okay, so I know that they were making a big deal about him making his first start and getting back to the Blackhawks. He had a great night, stopped 41 of 42. I didn't know much about his story until I was like, what do you mean comeback?
Yeah, well, he was highly touted. He was first round, 13th overall pick by the Panthers. He was supposed to be the next goaltender. They ended up picking up Bob, or I guess, Bob was kind of fumbling the bag this time. They're like, well, thank God we got Knight. And I remember Bob fell down 3-0 to Tampa. I think that was like the 21 playoffs. Spencer Knight came in, almost erased the deficit down to, I think it was Game 7. Obviously, Vasi and them took him out. But then stumbles a little bit. I think he posted like a 901, 902, couple tough years, throwing down the Always Hungry, the American Hockey League. Goes actually last season, was in the substance program for the NHLPA, out for a considerable amount of time. Comes back. Obviously, I think he backed up, might have been the third guy, still gets a Stanley Cup ring. But Bob's found his game the last 2 years, so you're not going to take the starting job. They bring in Seth Jones, who Chicago ate 25% of his salary, and then Spencer Knight goes over to Chicago. This is now the goaltender of the future, And within 2 days, I love the fact that he was playing in all his Panthers gear. I used to love when guys would get traded and they have the old team gear, like Mike Smith gets traded down to Tampa. He's rocking the Dallas gear. Something about that I just like. He's even using the Panthers bucket. But he goes in against the Kings, 41 of 42 for a debut. Have yourself a night, a 9.76 save percentage for the win. 4-1 against the Kings, closes them out at home. Fans were loving it. And also, just from a goaltending perspective, he is so smooth, in control. If you watch the footage, there's always something in front of the puck. He's closing down holes. He's great. He's elite. Spencer Knight is a guy I'd love to have on the show. I'd love to pick his brain just on his comeback the last 2 years from being in the PA assistance program to now. Probably going to be the future guy in Chicago.
I'm not taking anything away from him at all, but I will make a reference, or I'll draw parallels to golf season, which is coming up here very quickly, and with the melt we've been getting. I just got off a road trip about 13 hours west of here, drove all the way out to Edmonton to meet my mother and my brother and his fiance, and brought the whole family out, and the melt is happening all throughout Western Canada. So believe me when I tell you, the golf clubs are getting shined, and we're getting ready. And I think every golfer, when it comes to the start of the season, the first maybe half dozen games, if you're an avid golfer, the first half dozen games are like, oh, I'm feeling good, because you're not overthinking it, right? You're just like, I'm just happy to be out. I'm just happy to be out on the golf course. I'm just be happy to be swinging a club. And after about 6 rounds, then you start thinking, oh, well, maybe I can turn my elbow in a little bit more. Maybe I need to speed it up. Maybe I need to change my footing. I just hope that he can stick with what he's good at and be able to play well up to his potential. Because a lot of times it's like, oh, one game, that's it. He's the savior. This is it. Oh, my God, we figured it out. Give it a little bit of time. Give him a dozen games.
Well, do you remember when Scrivens, he went to Edmonton and he put up that 60-save goose egg versus the Sharks? So like, we found the next Grant Fuhr.
Bingo.
And then they chased him out of town the following season. And then while they were chasing him out of town, they brought in Victor Foth, the Swedish goalie from the Ducks.
Yep.
He was playing great. Our next savior. We found another Billy Ranford. And then they chased him out of town the following year. They bring in Anders Nilsson. Oh, we found our guy. Finally, they chased him out of town, just this revolving carousel of goalies. So.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, man.
That's a terrible team in Chicago, too. That's a real bad team.
This is another, and I'm going to say it again, this is another great example of why we need to treat goaltenders a little bit more like Major League Baseball, because in baseball, pitchers are the same way. They're like, oh, you had one good game. Oh, see you later. Back to AAA. You need to have a bigger, the NHL hockey in general needs to allow for 3, maybe even 4 goaltenders on your everyday roster. It just, I think we're at that point.
You know, you'll like this story. So this is probably like 5 years ago. This is a really good Bob story. So 5 years ago, Panthers were playing at home. The Calgary Flames were in town. I'm watching the Panthers play. Bob comes out first for warm-up. Bob's starting. This is exciting. I'm really excited to see Bob. Bob heads off, maybe like with 8 minutes left in warm-ups, and then Montembeault starts taking all the shots. Montembeault comes out to start the game. I'm thinking to myself, what the heck just happened? Bob didn't look like he got injured or whatnot. Apparently, Bob had just played against the Leafs 2 nights earlier, goes to warm up against Calgary, goes in the room, goes and finds Joel Quenneville, and he says, Q, I'm just not feeling it today. Bob, we're like 2 points back from the playoffs. We need you. Not today. Quenneville flipped his shit and then ends up starting Montembeault as a result. Like that's embracing that baseball mentality. Just not feeling it today, a little bit too much mileage.
Wouldn't you? I'd much prefer a guy tell me that.
But that's an old school coach, though. Like when I tell you you're starting, you're starting. I'm counting on you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts of your cue.
Yeah.
And one of the winningest coaches of all time, too.
In this day and age, I mean, look, if that happened every second or third game, like, I'm not feeling it tonight. It's like, okay, this guy's a flake, obviously. But you know, once every blue moon, if any player comes to you and just goes, especially if you like I got a 23 minute a night guy, it comes to you and goes, Coach, I'm not feeling it. I got some stuff going on. Like I don't think it's safe for me to be out there, for me or the team. I'd appreciate that.
You think that's the future of the NHL?
Yeah.
Player says that, you know, take the night off, JT.
Yeah.
Take the night off, Elias.
I'll be honest with you. I think that would have, truthfully, as much as we like to say, hey, good on JT Miller for taking that time off and whatnot and all the things that we don't really know about, if that would have been handled with a little bit more compassion and maybe empathy, maybe JT's not in New York. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, he's having a great time in New York right now. Like his production is through the roof. What do you have? 13 points in 11 games at last check.
You see that interview his wife had the other day? She's happy to be out of Vancouver too.
Oh man, I didn't see that. Honestly, I try to stick to the players as far as what they're saying when it comes to their family life. That's their family life. I really don't care.
The NHL started this podcast for like 2 NHL hockey wives interview other hockey wives. Don't ask me how I started watching it. but I was glued for like an hour. I couldn't stop watching it. It was interesting. It was an interesting watch.
And what are your thoughts on it? Do you like it?
Well, so they interviewed JT's wife, and they're asking her about the trade, and she just kept talking about how she was so upset, how she was on a girls' trip for the Canucks wives. And I thought to myself, way to make it about yourself. Your husband just got traded, and you're upset that you're on the girls' trip. It's getting cut short, but you got way more personality than you did from the players. Like she's talking about the impact that she's having in the community, things that she does like, the things that she doesn't like, about some of the hate that they've dealt with in Vancouver, and some stories with the other wives as well, and moving there. And how the teams have or haven't accommodated, let's say, with the Rangers, we'll move your car out there, we'll move your pets, we'll make sure there's an apartment, we'll make sure this is taken care of. The Canucks, they didn't do that. It was honestly an interesting listen. It was a really interesting listen.
I think it's dangerous, only because I know there are players out there that will use any sort of mental warfare they can, and they will literally pull right from that.
100%.
Right from that transcript and use it against a guy on the ice.
Well, and we took some heat the other week for talking about Dylan Sandberg and having his wife, Dr. Sandberg, on TikTok. But this is the thing that a lot of people don't realize. You have your man who's chasing excellence in the NHL, where the media are a bunch of snakes who are looking to grab anything they can and run with it. And you're going to see somebody's hockey wife in the next couple of years. They're just going to post something, not malicious, not purposeful to try to do anything bad, but they're just going to post something because women love flexing the lifestyle. A man says, I love you. Woman says, I business you. Hey, we're at a nice restaurant. Hey, here's where we're living, whatever. And the media's going to pick it up. They're going to run with it. And I think that the one thing that a lot of these hockey wives don't understand is that when you have an Auston Matthews, Kyle Connor, Gabe Vilardi, like these high-end players, there's dudes in Winnipeg, obviously not us, but there's dudes in rooms checking out Instagram stories looking for somebody to get. Same thing in Toronto, same thing anywhere else. And when you're posting that stuff, it's just a bad idea. And that's why, again, with no disrespect, if you're in the NHL, get your wife off TikTok.
Hey, I'm bringing it up again only because I think it proves this point, because we've talked about her before. What's Sidney Crosby's girlfriend's name?
No idea.
Exactly.
But she's not making herself the star of the show.
Exactly.
Do you feel, though, a lot of these hockey wives, like the Vilardi's wife and the Sandberg's wife, etc., they're making it about themselves when it's like you should be a compliment to your man's lifestyle?
Like I said, I mean, like the only time I hear about this kind of stuff is when you tell me about it. Other than that, I don't look for it. I'm not on social media. The stuff does not pop up on my in my algorithm or my feed.
But so you don't have TikTok where all this stuff lives.
Well, exactly. And I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of happy about that. Because if I'm going to criticize Dylan Sandberg, it's going to be on his play. And honestly, he's been playing great. He's playing great at the point where he might actually be trade bait. You know, we could be talking about him moving on in a package deal at some point right before the deadline. I'd rather talk about that rather than thinking about like, oh, maybe it was the thing that his wife put on. I don't know. I'd rather keep it on the ice for the most part unless something extremely, obscure happens.
Why don't you have kids? Instead of making TikToks, go make some babies and have a family. That sounds more fulfilling than making TikToks about your Pilates and your yoga classes. What do you think about that?
Well, look, my wife has a very healthy social media, and in the grand, it makes.
But your wife was a model beforehand. She wasn't trying to build a brand off your brand as a lifestyle.
But it also makes sense for my industry, right? I mean, great. I mean, she's actually reposted some stuff that we put on social media. So, hey, great.
But she champions our stuff.
Of course she does.
She's not trying to take what you do and then turn a side brand off of your lifestyle.
Do you know how excited she was when she found out that we're going to have the cold brew? Like, she loves this stuff. Like, honestly, she was like, oh, does that mean, are we going to get like a can or two for free? Like, she loves the nitro, the cold brew. She loves it. Oh, loves it.
Made right here in Manitoba. Right? Yeah. I was at the plant today in Winnipeg. Great spot.
And they're going to be getting into a Sobeys and Safeway right away too, right?
Yeah, they're in. You can get them in Co-op, Vita Health. You can get them online as well. They have a website. We'll put a link in the video description as well.
Yeah, please do.
But just off of McGillivray Boulevard in Winnipeg on the south end. Great spot. Sean, former cop, went from putting guys behind bars to putting coffee on the bar table for you.
Wow. Just going back to the Canucks really quickly for a second. Jack Hughes, who we mentioned earlier, terrible. Like, believe me when I tell you. I mean, that A, sucks for the league. B, sucks for the Devils, obviously. But just there goes another sheepdog. Love it.
We had to replace the Green Mermaid.
Who's the what?
We had to replace the Green Mermaid after they canceled, they kiboshed the refill program. I can't even get a free water anymore. They're like, sorry, you got to buy a $12 latte if you want water.
I get what you're saying. I got you.
We're supporting local here.
I'm picking up.
Especially with the tariffs.
Absolutely. Believe me when I tell you, and I just mentioned the trip that I went on out west. My wife and I were thinking about maybe going down to Mexico. We're thinking about maybe going down to Mall of America or someplace warm. And we honestly, consciously talked about it and said, no. Let's keep the money in Canada. 100%. Yeah, did we leave the province? Sure. But we kept it in Canada, and we're actually really proud of that.
You went to the best province in Canada, too. You went to Alberta.
Look, I love every province in Canada. I've been to
Except Saskatchewan.
I've been to almost all of them. Well, look, I'll be honest with you. At this point, I'm willing to call a truce with old Saskabush. Hard to spell, easy to draw.
Well, no. Well, you love Saskatoon. You hate Regina.
Oh, I love Saskatoon.
But we're going to Regina in June, though.
We are?
For the Hotel Saskatchewan.
We are?
Yes, we are.
I want to call a truce then. Outside of our Canadian football teams, Riders and Bombers, we're months away from that season kicking off. But I'm willing to call a truce for the sake of Canada.
Well, we are a Canadian hockey podcast, but what about the great people in Newfoundland?
Lord Hunter Dubai, I love them.
You've
People
been
of
chirping
Newfoundland.
them for being dumb when Quebec wanted to leave.
What? What are you talking? Never chirp them for being never. I made a joke saying the Newfoundlanders were looking forward to Quebec separating because they thought it'd be a shorter drive to Toronto.
Get them out of there, bud.
That's just a joke, boy.
Get them out of there, bud.
Lord Hunter and Jesus, put a kettle on. We can talk about it, boy. Come on over. Listen, I grew up with 55% Newfoundlander population. I know that, even though I've never been to that province, it's one of the few provinces I've never been to. I know it like the back of my hand. Whether you're from Come Chance or St. John's, Newfoundland, boy, and don't forget about Labrador. It's a good province out there, man. Good people. Great people. They give you the last shirt off their back.
Yeah, great
and
chowder.
thank God the cods come back too.
And they got great chowder, man. Great lobster. I'm thinking of PI, lobster and potatoes.
How would you know? You get donairs when you get out the East Coast.
No. Listen.
Back to the Canucks.
Water down the donair sauce.
Back to the Canucks.
Yes. They got great donair in Vancouver too, by the way.
Outside of Jack Hughes getting injured, and that sucks. Every time I see Quinn Hughes, why does it look like he just took 3 back-to-back red-eye flights, got into a fight outside of a bar, and then went for morning skate, got bagged the entire time? Why is it every time I see him on camera, he looks like he's just ready to just pack it in?
He's probably been dealing with the Vancouver women, to be honest with you.
God, man, it's unbelievable. Maybe he's just a low-key guy, but he always just looks like he's been through the ringer.
I don't pay attention. I watch the goalies, man. I don't know nothing about the players. I saw the Amazon Prime when they buried him. They posted his address and everybody could know where he was living.
No, they didn't dox him.
Yeah.
Who did that?
In the Amazon Prime series. So if you didn't see it,
Oh
and
my God.
I'm not helping the problem by any means here, but in the Amazon Prime series, they had a shot out of his apartment. He opens up the blinds, and if you've been to Vancouver, you see that scenery, you know exactly where he is. It's in Falls Creek, right by the Olympic Village, right by the Canby Street Bridge, looking at BC Place, looking at the Falls Creek waterway.
That's brutal.
And they posted that, and I'm thinking to myself, we just had Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Malkin, Seguin, Joe Burrow, all these guys get robbed this season, and now you're showing everybody where he lives.
Wow.
And unless there's 24/7 security, which hopefully there is, why did somebody from the Canucks, well, half of them are probably high, but why did you not see the video and say, let's not show people where he lives? Our best player. What a bunch of idiots.
No wonder he looks so stressed out.
I would be too.
That explains everything.
At least you're not Elias Pettersson, though.
You know what? I saw an interview with him past couple days, just talking about moving forward. I mean, he hasn't been overly productive. I think isn't there a goaltender that has more goals than him in the last month?
Yeah, Ilya Sorokin has more goals than Elias Pettersson in the month of February. That's tough. And Sorokin didn't even have a shot on net. He made a rebound save, and they buried it in the empty net.
Wow.
That's
yeah,
tough.
man. I'll be honest with you. When you make big changes like that and you pick your horse in the race and he starts pulling up lame, that's not a good look. And I really hope he pulls it together, because I have a colleague who is he's actually from Port Moody. He's a huge Canucks fan, huge supporter, and he's already given up on the season. So, I mean, listen, if you're a Canucks fan, tell me I'm wrong.
Well, only one point out of the playoff spot.
Yeah, but like I said, and that's a great example. He's already given up. He's like, nah, season's done.
Well, man, if you can get Demko healthy and just playing a couple games, I think that puts you over the edge.
I don't know. I think Demko's on the move.
You're fighting Calgary, who's got Dustin Wolf kicking, but the rest of the team stinks.
I know we're gonna talk about trades next week. Obviously, getting up to the deadline, but
Trade center especially. Yep.
I think Demko's. I think he's on the move. I think he's already got his bags packed. I think he knows it.
I would love to see him move. You know, to be honest with you, I love the Jets because I'm born in Winnipeg. I love the city of Winnipeg. I want to see the Jets do well. I also love the Canucks because Vancouver's like a second home to me.
Yep.
I love that place.
Yep.
It's Canada's best city, not like the dump in Toronto. And I'd love to see the Canucks make playoffs because the energy is great. But we want to see them do well, but not too well. Because if they win too many playoff rounds, there's a chance they might burn the city down again. And listen, I love spending time in English Bay. I love Falls Creek. I love downtown in that whole area. Beautiful spot. But last year, Game 7 with the Oilers, They had so many people in downtown. I was so scared that if they won that game, my apartment, which was downtown at the time, was going to get torched. I was so happy that they lost because I was scared.
Honestly, I think they learned their lesson, especially with all the facial recognition that the Vancouver City Police used to track down those people that were doing those things, and the way they got spanked after that. I mean like spanked by the law. Mm-hmm. I think everyone learned their lesson on that one.
Can I go off in the mainstream media just for a second? I saw a take.
Please.
I saw a take by the fake news media in Vancouver last week where they were talking about Thatcher Demko. He's on his way out. Nobody's going to give him a chance. The guy's injured too much. The juice is not worth the squeeze.
I literally just said the same thing, though.
The reason I bring this up, we're talking about a guy who was second in Vezina voting last year. If Connor Hellebuck is not born, he's the reigning Vezina winner. He was that good and didn't lose by too much to Hellebuck in the Vezina voting. And he has a couple injuries. I get it. But think about Bitcoin. You got to buy the dip. You don't want to buy it when it's $150,000 a coin. You want to buy it when it's $190,000 a coin.
Totally.
So get him in low. Get him in cheap.
I said it last month. I think the Oilers should make a go for him. Even just to have him. I mean, look, as much as name's escaping me. Back up for Edmonton.
Oh, Pickard.
Calvin Pickard.
Pixie. Winnipeg boy.
Yes, exactly. That's why I feel bad about forgetting his name.
Yep.
As much as I love him and I think he's great, if you have Thatcher Demko in the wings, the second, and it'll happen early, the second that you see Skinner kind of going, Demko in there, confidence through the roof.
I put some money on that. If you can get Demko in the cage for the Oilers kicking, and we were just talking about today, they traded for, 2 forwards, for, Trent Frederick and Max Jones?
What are you doing? Like, the only thing you needed outside of goaltending, truthfully, Edmonton Oilers, was a right-handed D-man to play with Darnell Nurse. Like, am I the only one that sees that? And you can't find one of them? Unbelievable.
Or you get a goalie to fix the D problem.
No. You need a right-handed D-man to play with Nurse. Period.
You're trying to get the D-man to help the goaltending, which stinks. It stinks. It's
disgusting. Just in general. And I don't have the stats on this, but if you find a competent right-handed D-man, and the Oilers have had numerous before, if you find a right-handed, that makes Nurse better. Just from a purely plus-minus situation. I mean, who's that? Who's the guy with Philly that's like dash 101,564?
Rasmus Ristolainen, lifetime dash 177, the worst active plus-minus in the show.
And look,
that's tough. That's tough.
I was not a point getter. I was not much of an assist guy. My bread and butter was the plus-minus. And when I see guys that, like, how are you even on a team? I honestly, I don't get it.
Especially with Torts behind the bench.
God,
Farquad.
I don't get it. I really don't. Like, if a guy's
this, do you know what the worst plus-minus in one NHL season is?
It's going to be something weird like Ovechkin, because I know he had a lot of dash seasons.
Yeah.
Was it Ovechkin?
Bill Mickelson, minus 83 in one season. You got to take a year off after doing it. Like, if you go dash 83.
No, obviously he just did. After a season like that, it's like, yeah, I took that season off.
Yeah, we're not like... If you're like the best room guy, you're like a great glue guy, good for the chemistry, and you go dash 80, I don't think you're getting re-signed.
Unbelievable. Wow.
You got to be on the ice for every penalty killing goal against.
Unless you're putting up 150 points, not worth it.
But then if you're putting up 150 points and you're going dash 80, that means that you were on the ice for 200 and some odd goals against.
Yeah, but look, that's
like 4 goals a game.
The reason why I brought up Ovechkin, because, the first 5 to 6 years, and I mean, someone can pull the stats and prove me wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was at he was in the negatives when the Capitals were bad, and he was putting up a lot of points, and they thought there's potential there. He's not going to be a Selke winner, but even Sergei Fedorov, going back to my day of hockey, even Fedorov was, until he won the Selke, he was a dash guy as well, even though he was putting up like 50 goals a year.
Man, he had great style. The white jets, sick flow.
Do you remember when he put on the white Nikes?
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I'm referring to. The white skates. Some people don't like it, man. Those white jets, those look crisp. Well, I always hated Gretzky with the black skates and the black the holders. I didn't like that.
They actually shined up his Easton more than anyone else's, eh?
Who? Gretzky's?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it shined out there, man. You knew when he was out there. It literally reflected off the spotlights coming down from the stadium.
There's just something. Keep in mind, I love wearing all white gear. White looks best on the ice, and just a nice fresh set of white kicks on the ice, some fresh blades, fresh twig, fresh tape. With that flow going down the wing. Sergei Fedorov, the 9-1 looks great in that white and red. That's a good style right there.
I love that Nike commercial they did to figure out who was faster, him or the fastest sprinter in the world at the time. And they took off, and they had the runner running on ice. And Sergei Fedorov looks at the camera and goes, he's not that fast. It was a pretty good flex.
Do you remember that McDonald's commercial? This must have been like 20 years ago. I remember I was just a kid at this point in time. They had this goalie. He was like a midget. He was like this big.
Oh, yeah. He was a French guy.
Yeah, they called.
He's dancing all over the place, stopping everything. Oh, not this time.
He's like, puck check.
Yeah, he was great.
Sergei Bobrovsky, I think they called him.
Yeah, he was awesome.
He's only like 6 inches tall. They're like, we can't score on this guy. The net's open. And he just found a way to stop everything low.
Yeah, I love that guy. That was great.
Those are some great
I think you could have gotten, I can't remember what the promotion was, but yeah, you've accessed a part of my Rolodex that I haven't thought about in a while.
Yeah, those are good times. Even though they had the McDonald's hockey cards, did you ever collect those?
Absolutely.
I literally remember my mom freaking out on my dad. I must have been like 8 or 9 years old because my dad and I would always collect the McDonald's hot cards and the Tim Hortons hockey cards, more so when they went to Tim Hortons later on, about a decade later. My dad, he'd buy like 50 packs of small fries because you had to buy a small fry with the cards.
Yeah.
And we'd have so many French fries. And my mom would be like, Frank, it's enough with the French fries, but we don't have the full set yet.
Nah, it's poutine for dinner.
But this also wasn't a time where like now you can go online, check, okay, I have this card. Like you just had to keep going until you had the full set and you thought you had it completed.
Were you, I know Upper Deck, it was Upper Deck that did it with McDonald's, but the hologram cards, like the OG hologram cards that you look at now, you kind of go, whoa.
I like the clear cut ones. It was like the clear plastic and then the picture of the goalie. I remember they had one year, they had the clear cuts and they had like some netting as like a glove save.
I remember that.
Yeah, those were good times.
I don't know, man. I'm still an O-Peachy guy. I liked it when they actually showed the entire hockey DB on the back of their car, like the entire one. Sometimes it was like the printing was so small, but it showed their entire, on that little card, that entire career.
You ever remember on hockey cards, they put like the most random stats in the back? I remember I got a pack of Damian Rhodes hockey cards one time, and on the back it's like, Damian was notorious for never looking at the score clock. He was always consistent. Like, who came up with this?
My favorite one of all time?
Yeah.
Bill Barilko.
The last guy to score the winning goal for the Leafs, right? And then he died, right?
And why do you know that?
Tragically hip.
50 mission cap, baby.
Bill Barilko disappeared
that summer. He was on a fishing trip. That was it. I stole this from a hockey card. I kept tucked up under my 50 mission cap. Awesome.
R.I.P. the late great Gord Downie.
Gord Downie.
What was the best Tragically Hip song of all time, do you think? If you had to pick one. Actually, here's a better question for you. Well, I'll give you two. What's the greatest song to come out to in hockey? Give me both answers.
Can I answer with a pretty big flex instead of answering your direct question?
Yep.
I interviewed him. Sat down.
Who?
Shared air with him. Gord Downie.
You interviewed him?
Absolutely.
You have video of that?
That's a great question. It was at the basement of 930 Portage, on Portage and Lenore here in Winnipeg, and they had just released World Container.
When was that?
2004, maybe 5.
Oh, you just came to Winnipeg.
Yeah, I was fairly fresh, and we interviewed him in the basement. We had a whole crew there. Yeah, it was a moment I will never forget.
He's probably kicking himself for endorsing Justin Trudeau, but anyway, we'll leave that till to the end of the show. Greatest song to come out to in hockey. What is it?
Greatest song to come out to?
What gets the blood kicking? Here come your Winnipeg Jets, Dallas Stars. This song.
I'm biased on this one because I was in the arena at the Saddle Dome when I was doing the man in the stands work for the Calgary Hitmen in 1999. Andrew Ladd was our captain, and Dragula.
Rob Zombie.
Dragula. This sounded great in the arena, man.
Yeah, it's a heavy one.
It was perfect.
Yeah,
this thumped.
That was a goal song, too, for the Predators for a bit. That was a great song.
Dig through the ditches and burn through. Yeah, it sounded great in the arena, man.
Man, I remember Pittsburgh. They used to have Seek and Destroy. I always think of Seek and Destroy when I think of the Penguins and that cup run, and they had that playing at PPG Paints Arena. That was a good one too. Even the Dallas song that Pantera wrote.
Dallas Walk.
Stars.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like Walk, but
yeah.
Great songs. I was thinking System of a Down, little aerials. That could be a good one to come out to.
A little too slow. Chop Suey's great.
Start a little slow and then come out nice and heavy. Or some Nickelback, Little Animals. Just instrumental, get the fellas going on the ice. Let's go.
Alan Parsons Project was always a good one. NBA used a lot of that one.
Can't go wrong with Burn It to the Ground either.
Actually, it was funny. That popped on when I was on my road trip.
Burn It to the Ground?
Yeah.
Great song on NHL soundtracks and the video games back in the day. That's a guy I would love to interview. I know we'll never get the opportunity to.
I've interviewed him too.
If we could get him in this chair, what are the interviews, the stories that you could tell?
I would love to hear his, because he's a big Canucks fan.
Well, apparently he befriended Miikka Kiprusoff because he loved arm wrestling him back in the day.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind he grew up in central Alberta, so I think he was a Flames Oilers fan. But
so that makes sense why he befriended Kiprusoff.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Get them both in the same room together. I know Kiprusoff does like zero like negative media, but that'd be a good interview. On the topic of Flames, actually, I had this penciled down for later on in the notes, but the Flames are doing a promotion next week. So the Calgary Flames are doing Pride Night. We've talked about this many, many times. Why NHL teams don't leave this shit away from the rink. What you do in the bedroom and your sexual life does not need to be at the rink. It does not need to be around the kids. Keep it away. If anything, we should be having a 51st state night, not the Pride Nights, and Calgary of all places.
Okay, hear me out on this. I think I'm going to try and say this as...
It's a hard one to defend.
No. It's not a matter of defending it, but I'm going to try and explain it to you the same way that they present Punjabi Night in Canada.
Oh, boy.
It's because... No. Hear me out.
Okay.
How else are you going to introduce a game that traditionally has not been in their repertoire unless you roll out the red carpet? The same thing they did with Punjabi Night. There are people that are coming into this country that don't speak the language, right? Mm-hmm. But they would really like to introduce them to hockey because here's a whole bunch of people that are going to come in. They're learning about our culture. They don't have the traditional games and entertainment that they do back in their home country. So why not introduce them to one that they might really like? Hey, you know what? For one night, let's do it in your language. So it's kind of similar when it comes to Pride Night. Here's a game that traditionally has not been overly accepting. I mean, it is now. I mean, I think we can all agree hockey's for everyone. They've made that very, very, very clear. But there are still a lot of people who are maybe have a lot of PTSD, and they're kind of going, we're not that brand anymore. Let's roll out the red carpet for you. Come on in.
I think people in Canada are just tired of the unchecked immigration and having all these refugees that are criminals and thugs and that are completely unchecked coming in.
Not all of them are. Not all of them.
Not all of them are. When you look at the crime rates going up, all the carjackings in Toronto, I think people are just tired of this. And I think another thing that bothers a lot of people, myself included, if you come to Canada from wherever you came from, I'm assuming you're coming here because the place you're in before was a dump. If you're coming from that dump, don't bring that way of life over here. Come and embrace our way of life. The same way when I went to Sweden, I don't tell them no more meatballs. I go and embrace Swedish culture.
Right, which I think is why they do nights like Punjabi Night in Canada, to be like, to be like, hey, welcome. Here's a bit of our culture. Please come and enjoy and see why we love it so much. We want you to love it as much as we do. And plus, the NHL loves it. All these teams are like, maybe we can sell some more merch. Maybe we can be sold out on a regular basis. Maybe here is an untapped market that we're not appealing to quite yet. And how do we do that? Thump. Roll out that red carpet.
Well, that's 100% a conversation they're having in the marketing department. But the problem is the marketing department is these people that are coming straight out of university, which is an indoctrination center. And at no point do they talk about, let's say, Bud Light, where they said, we're going to alienate 95% of our demographic by saying we don't want to sell our beer to people that are frat boys in university, white, or that love to drink on weekends.
Okay, but the NHL is not doing that. They're not trying to shut out their existing market. They're just trying to add to it.
True, but I think that market, that is your typical majority NHL demographic, is tired of the rainbows. They're tired of all the unchecked immigration.
Sure, I get that, but I can understand where you're coming from. But if they did it every single night, I think I could maybe get on board. But if they do one night out of the year, I don't think you're putting that average fan out.
I think if you just left it, like everything away from the game, go back to the way it used to be, you came to hockey, you came to an NHL game to get away from all the distractions in the outside world.
I think you need to look at it less from a perspective of the whole what you do in your bedroom is your own thing. It's more so of traditionally they're looking at stats going, oh, gays and lesbians don't seem to like hockey. Why is that? Well, is it because have we really invited them? Have we made it welcoming for them? Why don't we see if we put out a big call saying, hey, it's your night, we're going to be kind of more focused towards you guys, I guess. Like, I mean, like the hockey's going to be the same, but maybe some of our promotions, maybe they can grab a handful of them.
I mean, the fact that bowling is still doing more numbers in the NHL is...
In the U.S.
Sure.
Absolutely. Not in Canada.
It is, well, nobody really watches bowling in Canada, but in the U.S., it further shows that what they're doing is not working. I think it's very fair to say.
Well, I mean,
there's only one way to settle this.
How many NHL teams in Canada are selling out on a nightly basis?
4 out of 7.
Okay, so they got some work to do. So if your usual stable of fans aren't filling up the rink, then sometimes you got to go look elsewhere to say, let's get more people in those seats. They don't care who sits. Honestly, in the grand scheme of things, they do not care who sits in those seats as long as they're filled.
And paid for.
Right.
There's only one way to solve this. We have a voicemail line. There's a link in the description. If you're on the Apple or Spotify, on the podcast notes, you click that link. You do not need a phone number. You just put your name in there. You get a 90-second call. Put whatever you want in there. You can call about anything. You agree with us. You disagree with us. Feel free to exercise your right to the voicemail. Speaking of which, let's get to some voicemails.
Hey guys, Quentin calling in from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Hey, Quinn.
Really just wanted to leave you guys a little bit of a shout out and let you know that you're killing it. I love your stuff. Both of you guys, first of all, you have an awesome voice for radio. You guys are great storytellers. You bring obviously a player's aspect into it and make it really fun to listen to you guys. At first, you guys were pushed on me on Instagram several times, just kind of hating on chiclets. And I kind of thought you guys sucked for a little while, but then I started listening to some of your content and just a really well-run show. And I'll give you a special shout out for taking some hard positions on a number of things in the game and outside of the game and politics that is certainly not very popular. But it brings a lot of common sense, which is something that people are lacking. And I think it's super entertaining, very insightful. Keep bringing those hard takes. And shout out to you guys, man. You guys are awesome.
Hey, moral of the story, if you're tired of other podcasts selling your kids booze and propaganda, we're the show for you. Well, didn't you say it a while ago? We are a common sense podcast.
Did I ever tell you that the Carolinas are very, very, very high on my bucket list of places to go? I want to do South Carolina for their golf. North Carolina, I want to go see a Tar Heels game. Michael Jordan's from that area. Charlotte, I was a huge Hornets fan back in the Larry Johnson days. Alonzo Mourning, Muggsy Bogues. Actually got a chance to meet Muggsy Bogues once upon a time. I would love to go check out Charlotte.
If I could rub it in for a quick second, when I got traded one of the 33 times, I drove right through the Carolinas. Beautiful.
Oh.
Very beautiful. Actually, I remember I left upstate New York. It was freezing. It was like -6. I got to the Carolinas. It was like +15. It was fantastic.
I would love to go play Myrtle Beach.
I miss getting traded every single week. I miss that a lot, actually. Those are good times.
Just wanted to take a second to think I think you guys were spot on the Wayne Gretzky stuff. People seem to have forgotten what he's done for Canada as far as the hockey level and bringing awareness to the country and the importance of the game. So I do think calling him a traitor is a little short-sighted. I'm also willing to put some blame on Paulina's husband, Dustin Johnson, who definitely is a maggot, spelt M-A-G-A-T. And I just feel like he's supporting his daughter with her husband and got dragged into a bad position he probably regrets.
What's the T stand for?
Look, I find it very interesting that in the whole idea of being accepting of people's views in general, that the second you find out somebody votes a certain way, if you're going to write off anything they've ever done or ever said, I think it's very dangerous.
Well, is that not further proof that when the greatest hockey player to ever put on skates is a "what have you done for me lately"? What chance do I have? What have you done for me lately?
Right.
Hey Trav, it's Adam McConnell, formerly known as Dirty Hockey on Instagram and YouTube.
Hey Adam.
Keep up the great work on the podcast, man. The conversations are always really solid. I've been a subscriber on YouTube since your junior B days here in Canada.
Wow.
So
Thank you, my friend.
keep up the great work, man. Aside from that, I just wanted to thank you for shedding light and speaking truth to the Freedom Convoy there in your last podcast. As somebody who lost their livelihood and was made into a second-class citizen and was there in Ottawa to experience and be a part of everything, I really appreciate you using your voice and your platform to talk about it. Obviously, a very dark time for our country and me personally and my family and friends that didn't follow the trend. So very important that there's people like you that aren't afraid to talk about it, and I really appreciate you shedding light on it, man. So thanks so much. Keep up the great work, and hopefully we have the opportunity to talk about this type of stuff in person someday. Would love to do it. Thanks, brother. Cheers.
As they say on the Quebecois license plate, je me souviens.
What does that mean?
I'll never forget.
You know what? Can I address that real quick, that one call?
Go for it.
Seriously, though, if it wasn't for the heroes that stood up for the Freedom Convoy in 2022, honestly, we'd probably still be 6 feet apart wearing face diapers under our dictator. And honest to God, again, thank you to the big orange man for fighting our dictatorship government here in Canada, because Nobody else in this country will. Like people thinking that, oh, you know what? I couldn't stand up to my own dictator government during the scamdemic of 2020, and I was calling the snitch line on Trav when he was having a barbecue with his family over on Christmas Day. But yeah, I'm going to stand up to the big orange man now. Dude, that's one of the things why our show is so great. We're not held up by any corporations. Anything goes. Talk about anything. Call the voicemail if you want us to talk about it. Also, where's all the hate calls today? We don't have any hate calls yet.
Stand by. They're coming.
Hey guys, it's Jack calling in here from Detroit, Michigan.
Oh,
Trav, I got a question for you. Why haven't you signed with the Danbury Hat-Tricks in the FPHL? I know you've talked about how the FPHL hasn't really panned out for you.
Mm-hmm.
However, I know that you have sort of built a relationship with AJ Galante, the vice president of the Danbury Hat-Tricks, and you were on his podcast not too long ago, and you guys seem to really hit it off. So my question is, why haven't you guys worked on a contract so you could play for them and come back in the FPHL? Because, man, I think I speak on behalf of a lot of the listeners. We would love to see you back in the FPHL, especially playing for the Danbury Hat-Tricks. I think that would be really sweet. So, yeah, that's my question is, why haven't, you being close with AJ Galante and him being the vice president, why haven't you been signed to a contract for the Danbury Hat-Tricks?
Hey, man, listen, nobody wanted to play for the Danbury Hat-Tricks this season more than myself, and you know how I am. I'm loyal. AJ opened up his home to me, greeted me, gave me the red carpet when I came to Danbury. I think it was in September, might have been August. So you're never going to hear me say a negative thing about him outside of the fact, AJ, where is your podcast, dude? I don't have anything to listen to during the week now. Where is your podcast? You got to start it up again. But as far as why am I not in the FPHL, you know what? I don't know if we actually talked about this, man. I've just come to terms with the fact that it's over. That's it. I'm not going to play in the FPHL again. Where there is money, corruption follows not too far along. And when you have the guy that we talked about last week, the biggest scumbag of ownership in all of professional sports, that is sandbagging guys for $8,000 dental bills, breaking their jaws, blocking shots for your team, or you're banning your captain for life and sending his family home who's done nothing but good things to your team, or the guy who's been fighting for your team the last 3 years, he gets robbed, held up at gunpoint, everything's stolen, says, hey, can you help spot me some gear? Doesn't have to be nice. Just say, oh, sorry, you can go afford it yourself. I know I only pay you like $75 a week. This is the way that the league works. This is how minor pro sports works. If AJ Galante called me and said, come down to the Danbury Hat-Tricks tomorrow, let's talk some logistics, I'd love to play for the guy because I actually respect him. He's one of the few guys in the FHL that I do respect. However, that is a question that you'd have to ask him why I'm not in Danbury. Because I don't want to speak on his behalf and put words in his mouth. But he's a great guy. I'm very loyal to him because he's been great to me. But you'd have to ask him for that answer.
Hey, what is up? Trav and Wheeler calling
Hello.
here from Detroit, Michigan. And this one's for Wheels. Wheels, man, I'm a big fan of yours. I like you a lot, dude. You always have really great, insightful knowledge to tell us. And
Great suits
I'm just
too.
so happy that you and Trav have been doing this podcast for quite some time and going strong. I'm really a big fan of yours. You're a really good compliment to Trav and vice versa. However, that being said, I only have one bone to pick with you, and it's just a little one. I've noticed that you're very repetitious and obsessive with using the line "once upon a time." I've actually noticed that every single podcast, you at least say it at least 2 to 3 times per podcast. And that's my really only bone to pick with you is you have an obsession of saying it. So my challenge is, can you go one whole podcast without saying the line once upon a time?
I don't think you said
And if you
today.
can, I'll be extremely surprised. All right, you guys have a good one.
Okay, I'll keep this short. Thank you for pointing that out. It's been a long time since I've had a program director air check me. And that is what is traditionally in my industry called a crutch. I think the actual line of once upon a time probably comes with my age and wisdom, because when I tell a story, it means it was from a long time ago, and I'm giving myself time to recount that portion of the Rolodex of my brain. So challenge accepted. I will do my best to try and stay away from saying once upon a time. But also, every great story starts with once upon a time.
Rising tide raises all ships.
There you go.
Thanks for the call.
What's up, Trav? What's up, Dave?
Hey.
Love the show.
Love you too.
Had 2 thoughts for the show. One, I had a question for Trav. So I got about 30,000 followers on Instagram.
Nice.
I post my workouts and I train other athletes, and I'm an athlete myself. I'm trying to get, sponsorships with different companies. I just wondered if you had any advice for me moving forward. And then second kind of thing is, I feel like Trav gets a lot of hate, from a lot of people about, him playing pro hockey and he wasn't a great goalie. But all I have to say is I think, I've seen the videos. I think he's a great goalie. I think a lot of hard work goes into it that people don't see behind the scenes. I've been behind the grind, and, I'm still grinding. I'm trying to make the CFL. It's my big goal. And,
Wow.
so many people love to hate.
Good goal.
And I don't really get it.
Well, let's call it for what it is. When you're tall, sexy, and humble, people are going to get upset. As far as the sponsorships go,
Yeah.
You got to rewind. Okay, so why do you want the sponsorships? Is it because you want money? Well, what is money? Money is a store of value. So if you provide value, you get money for the value you produce. So if you can provide value to a company, they will pay you, which is why we've been able to stay afloat and having sponsors for however long. So if, let's say, like you're trying to go to your CFL goal, which also that's a fantastic goal. It's amazing.
Focus on that.
Keep going towards that. But I'm assuming you're a football player, I would assume. If you're a football player, okay, well, then maybe you need some protein. So, okay, well, maybe I'll go to a protein company and say, I will work with you. I'll start with an affiliate deal, and then I'll show that I can move units for you, and then you got to start paying up. And if you don't pay up, then I'll use those stats to go to another company and try to get paid. That would be my recommendation.
Well, guys, thank you for playing my voicemail about Dave's hat and suit combination. Thank you for the answer on that. It definitely does look like you got that at the thrift shop.
Sure
so
did.
that makes a lot of sense.
Proud thrifter.
I got the same jacket too.
Man, you guys run an interesting program here. I love the fact that you bring up anything and everything's fair game. I love that, and that even when people disagree with you, you generally are okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you can get a little insulting by the people that you disagree with, but that's okay.
People that are ugly.
But hearing support for the Freedom Convoy, or I guess complete support, definitely agree with some of the ideals, and the things that happened to the truckers weren't fair. I'm with you there. But the convoy itself did get funded by some pretty divisive far-right groups, and it ended up getting spun into something a lot more negative and a lot things that were made this country look bad. And I guess maybe you guys just brushed over that or don't remember that there were swastikas and things like that. And, a couple bad apples do spoil the bunch, in my opinion. So I just wanted to put that out there. Again, love what you guys are doing. Love that you guys talk about everything and everything. It's just sometimes it's clear why jocks shouldn't maybe have free reign and a microphone.
Okay. Now, you're probably going to disagree with me on this one. It all depends on which media source you followed. Now, from what I understood is that, and I'm going back into the Rolodex here. From what I remember, that gentleman that you're talking about who was waving the swastika at the Freedom Convoy in front of the Canadian Parliament, he was doing it to say, this is what you guys are acting like. Might as well wave it in front of the Parliament building because this is how you're acting. It wasn't necessarily hooray for Nazis. Now, feel free to disagree with me on that. Think you got different information than I do. That's how it was presented to me. So listen, anytime I see that, I think it's disgusting. I hate it. I think he could have gotten his point across better than that, because you're right. It did spoil it, and it allowed the media to spin it in a situation where they're like, look, Nazis are there. Everything's bad. They're all bad. So in that way, yes, it absolutely gave the media an opportunity to spin it in that direction. Is that fair?
That's fair. Okay. If I could add to that, to anybody that listens to what we talk about and completely disagrees, when you watch the media, open your eyes. It might be the first time you ever use them. You're like, Travis, this burns, because you've used them for the first time. And ask yourself the question, why are they telling me this? Why do they want me to believe this? How do they benefit if I believe this? Does this benefit me? If you're screaming Orange Man bad, we are not the show for you.
What's up, Dave? What's up, Trav?
Hey.
I just had to redo this because I sound like a little girl on it. Jesus.
He's honest.
Just wondering if you've ever thought about playing in the ECHL.
I've thought about it.
I don't know if that's
not realistic.
I know the Kalamazoo K-Wings, that's my team. Wondering if you'd ever figure about going down there, seeing what you can do in the ECHL.
Well, first off, Kalamazoo, Michigan has more puck bunnies per capita than any other ECHL franchise. That is a known fact. Number two,
who wouldn't want to play at the coast?
Man, you got to get like weekly STD checks. That'd be kind of tough.
Easy now. That's on you. That's not on the league.
Yeah, that's true. That's not a part of the insurance policy. Have I thought about playing the ECHL? Yeah. Can I? No. Sorry, it's realistic.
Yep. Retired.
Hey, Trav, what are your thoughts about Sense Arena?
Sense Arena is great. If you have all the access to ice time in the world, no need for it. If you have no ice time, it's the next best thing. And if you want it, I have a promo code in the video that I made. So check out Sense Arena Review on my main channel. You find that, you get a nice little discount code on that too.
Hey Travis, it's Evan, and I'm a goalie as well, and I am currently in my last year of U18 hockey, and I currently play for the St. Anis's U18 team, and this upcoming weekend, we have provincials, and then our season's basically done, and I've been having some groin issues this season, because last season it kept happening at the end of the season, and then I left it in the summer to see if it was just a groin strain, and it would hopefully heal. But I got on the ice in September, and then everything started pulling apart again. And so I've been playing with this injury all season long, trying to maintain. Next season, I'm going to be moving into junior hockey, and I'm wondering, or I'm just curious, what was your experience like?
Get your groin taken care of.
Yeah, you know what? That sounds a lot like the Corey Schneider talk that we had over the summer. I don't know if that's a groin issue, dude. I would go and get checked for the cam hip impingement because so many groin issues are disguised as that. And let me tell you, as somebody who struggled with those issues for what felt like an eternity, you'd be amazed how much that cam hip is actually affecting the groin. You could do all the rolling, all the stretching, everything in the world. It's not going to fix it. So get that checked out, dude.
Go ask mom and dad if you're covered to go get an MRI done on your hips.
No, he's Canadian. He said provincial. Yeah, it's totally covered.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, right. Sorry.
It's like the only good thing about our
go
free
get it
healthcare
done
here.
then. Yes. Go get that done.
As far as junior goes, provide value, man. Stop pucks. Be confident. Provide value to your team. That's my advice.
Are they live right now? Hey, Trav. I just want to let you know that Winnipeg does have an airport, and if you opened your Google Maps, you stupid, and just looked around, it's called Richardson Airport. And keep the podcast, man. It's really good. Your takes are extremely good. Yeah, Dylan Sandberg, his wife's abusing him. Good take, man. He's definitely going to get traded. You're doing a good job, man. Keep it up.
What was that about the airport?
I think that was his mom in the background. He must be using his mom's Wi-Fi. I don't think I made any comments with the airport, did I?
I don't know.
It's always been the James Richardson International Airport. I'm a freaking flyer there. I go there all the time. I got lounge access. Maple Leaf Lounge is great. Gate 11.
We got numerous airports. We got the St. Andrews Airport. We've got 17 Wing.
When I do the intro and I say that we're by the Winnipeg Airport, because we are by the Winnipeg Airport.
Yeah.
Like the studio itself is what? Like a stone's throw away from the Winnipeg Airport?
10-minute drive.
I got the planes going right over top of the studio right now. You just can't hear it because of the soundproofing. Also, people are asking too, is this an interrogation room? Yes, this used to be an interrogation room. We put soundproofing up on the walls and we took it over because it was like half price. I said, we'll give you 50% off.
That's what we do here. We interrogate. We get to the bottom of things.
Been listening to the podcast here for the last 2 years. This is Devin from Pennsylvania. Just wanted to ask you guys what you think of the AHL, ECHL minor league landscape with some of these teams going over to family-friendly style marketing versus actually just marketing the sport as a whole. Let me know what you think.
Okay, well, Devin, I'll ask you. Did you not get excited when the Manitoba Moose of the American Hockey League did Star Wars night? Because I did. Love that. Guess whose kids wanted to go to the game? Mine. Love it.
I love when they did that 10:30 a.m. game. That was great. They brought all the kids and the school buses dropping off kids.
Absolutely.
That's great. Forget about the Pride nights. Let's get some 10:30 a.m. games. That's how you grow hockey right there. Also, I love how he's like, it's Devin from Pennsylvania. Like when Gene Simmons leaves a voicemail, hey, Gene Simmons.
Hey, it's Gene Simmons from Kiss.
There's another Gene Simmons calling me.
Hey, you never know.
All right. That's Slangin The Bizkit. Thank you so much. That is the diamond ring wearing, Rolex wearing, jet flying, limousine riding, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun. And he's been the top morning radio show host in the city of Winnipeg for over 20 years. I'm your favorite former pro goaltender. We do new episodes every single Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 in the prairies, 9 in the foothills of Calgary, 8 in the Pacific Northwest. If you're on Apple or Spotify, leave us a review. We'd love to hear what you think. On YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Clips are up on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok every single week, as well as Twitter/X. We'll see you next Sunday.